Welcome to our 119th episode of the Gutenberg Changelog podcast. In today's episode, we'll talk about WordPress 6.8.2, WordPress 6.9, Gutenberg plugin releases 21.1, 2, and 3. And then we have a couple of things that are still in the works that need your feedback and discussions. I'm your host, Birgit Pauli-Haack, curator at the Gutenberg Times and WordPress developer advocate and core contributor for WordPress. Tammie is joining me today, and I'm so happy to be able to catch up with my dear friend. Tammie was the design lead on the Gutenberg project phase 1 and still contributes a ton to the project. She sponsored 2 days a week by a range of awesome companies and individuals. She is also a co-founder of Gutenberg, a company focused on empowering and supporting product makers, and also creates products herself. Welcome, Tammie, to our show. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I'm still on vacation brain. It's my second week back and it's the first episode. So I don't know if I speak Norwegian, German, English, or any other language. So
I think you just need to hold on to that vacation brain. It's important, right? You just need to ride it for a while.
Well, it's holding on to me, actually, quite a bit. So when you were last on the show, it was January. That's half a year ago. So a lot has happened since. Anything that stands out for you that you're excited about, that you're working on, and that you...
Yeah, tiny, really not significant thing called the Core AI team that's been released, and also just everyone focusing together for 6.9. I feel the most significant thing, I think, is just the force that everyone is rejuvenated with working in the direction of features and the excitement everyone has about shipping. I don't know about you, but there's generally like a shipping is in the air. That's what it feels like at the moment. People want to ship things and make things and then explore the things. And I think we're going to find as we kind of go through the changelog, that's what caught me as I was reading it. People are using these features and then going, oop, I need this. Oop, I need this. And that is what makes everything better as well.
Yes, I agree with you. There's a lot of creativity in the air. There's a lot of excitement about what's coming next with the AI, but also just with how to work with the Gutenberg editor now. That's really at a total different level. Yeah, I totally get it. So, okay, so let's get started. WordPress 6.9. Well, the good news is there will be a second major release in 2025. Since end of May, Automatic has said they're contributing again to the open source project. And so some of the contributors are back, but there are also new ideas in there that are coming. So the core committers met in a quarterly meeting earlier. You're one of the core committers, so you were at the meeting, but I know Cheltenham rules there.
Yes.
And then out of came a proposal that Jeff Paul published on the Make blog with a planning proposal as well as a call for volunteers. So beta 1 is scheduled for October 21 if the release team that comes together kind of follows the plan. And then the release candidate, which is very important for a lot of things, is November 11. And the final release is then December 2nd, that in 2025. Yeah. So from what I hear, and please correct me if I'm wrong or add to it what I'm missing, it's going to be a little bit more improvements on the design tools. It's the new admin design. At some point, we will see something more in the release, and there will also be maybe even just in experimental ways in Gutenberg collaborative editing. There's some explorations, big explorations in the media library. What else?
So I think a lot of it's being worked out at the moment and the roadmap post is due. So everything you say, I think it's to be determined the boundaries of a lot of those things. Right. But the best way that I can frame it is 6.9 will lay a lot of the groundwork for 7.0 as well. So for some of these things that we want, we have to do some infrastructure, just like we had to do with Gutenberg in the phases, we have to do the infrastructure before. So just to suddenly go, ta-da, here's an admin redesign, that would be a little bit a lot for people. So how that happens, in what ways that happens, in what areas, that is something it's either, I use the word sprinkles, that's a weird word to use, but either some areas more functional could be in 6.9. I think it's being worked out at the moment where that is the most useful but at least friction. I think that's
Yeah.
the best way to, it's
Mhm.
one of those Venn diagrams. How can we get the most feedback without causing the least issues at the same time? There's been lots of different talks about how that could be done. Everyone will have an opinion, and I think that's just going to shape up over the next kind of few weeks, and then we will see from there.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Yeah, all those explorations and aspirations in the air. We'll see where that all lands. And
Yeah.
well, you hear it. You will hear it at the Gutenberg changelog first, because a lot of things will happen in the Gutenberg plugins in the
Yeah.
following releases. If my calculations are correct, I think 21.8 will be the plugin release that will make all the features into the 6.9 release. Could be also release candidate 20.9 or something like that, but yeah, something like that. So there are a few, we're at 3 now, so there are 5 more Gutenberg releases, and we will find out what will make it and what will be still in experiments or just
Mm-hmm.
the underlying infrastructure. You mentioned it before, AI,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, is in the air. uh, Around WordCamp Europe, there was a his new core team announced, and we talked about it a month ago with Ellen Bauer and with Anne McCarthy, Don Brain, Vacation Brain. So this week, James LePage, one of the team reps, published a post called AI Building Blocks for WordPress,
Mm-hmm.
and he outlines first that it's not going to be primarily in core. It's more like everything is built as a canonical plugin, like a feature plugin, and to avoid kind of early lock-in into a space that's highly not settled and still exploratory, all the standards or something like that. So there are 4 plugins. One is the PHP AI client SDK. SDK stands for Software Development Kit.
Mm-hmm.
So for any developer who wants to include AI features can build an client for that. Then the Abilities API, you might have heard about it under the name Feature API. That has changed. It's now Abilities API. And that is that you can register features from your plugin that an AI can react on or act on. And then the MCP adapter, that's Model Content Protocol adapter for WordPress.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is the AI Experiments plugin, which is actually a showcase plugin to reel it all in. Yeah, so that's kind of what the post outlines.
Yeah, and I think the experiments plugin is as you say, it's where everyone's going to come together and use these things, and also show people how to use these things and how they could implement. We've had experiments in Gutenberg. We've kind of tucked away. We've also had experiments in design. We've had experiments in theme, and I really love this because everyone is trying to work out how on earth they do AI, how on earth they do things where they can be useful in these
Hmm.
projects. And one of these things can be, maybe you do not know how to, very few people do, how to do PHP SD or MCP, all these kind of things, but you really want to start learning that, then being involved in the experiments plugin gives you an opportunity to kind of ride along and start to learn and discover with these teams that are
Hmm.
already at that edge and exploring. And it's more on product kind of work in those kind of pieces.
Yeah, for sure. So if you also want to kind of follow along, experienced WordPress developers, I know that Jonathan Bossager has a live stream on Twitch where he kind of explores the new things and figures out a way to actually implement something. So he has used the Abilities API to create courses in Sensei via an AI client. So if you want to see how that's going to work, you go to the YouTube channel of John Bossager. I definitely will share the link in the show notes about that. I also know that Ryan Welcher on his Twitch streams did quite a few experimentations with that. Lately, he's doing his block development cookbook, but afterwards he's going to jump into AI again. But
Mhm.
the previous editions definitely had some MCP and Abilities API explorations there that might be interesting for you, because when you see an experienced developer kind of explore things and kind of also go detours, you get a better
Mhm.
way of thinking for yourself and with your head around things. Yeah, that
I
works
think
and don't work.
many of them are also exploring it. Like it's
Hmm.
all it's a
Yeah.
new thing for everybody, even if you are an experienced developer. So being able to sit there and as someone is talking through and working through it, really
Mm-hmm.
helps you kind of feel it's not just you that maybe
Yeah.
doesn't understand where something goes.
You
You're
are
like,
not
we're all trying to work out where everything goes and how this new world functions.
yeah, you are not alone.
Yes. Which is what's also exciting. And one of the things that's also mentioned in the roadmap is Gutenberg Phase 3. A lot of the pieces in there, from the admin redesign to collaborative editing, all of and the media lab, which I'm so excited about.
Mhm.
Media is one of my little pet things, but being able to have all of that work be looked at as well is going to be very exciting.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. What's released? Well, just this week came out WordPress 6.8.2, a maintenance release with about 15 block editor fixes as well as 20 core tickets. A full list of bugs is in the release candidate announcement. You get them from the release post. Block editor features were some of the bigger problems with the navigation link. Some fixed the query loop bug that overrode the query inherit attribute. Yeah, so it's a nice, good bug fix maintenance release that makes life a little bit easier and squashes some bugs. And that brings us to Gutenberg 20.1 release. There were a few enhancements in there. Do you want to take it on and kick it off?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the block library, which is always a good place to start. It's been around for a while, but it still is really good to kind of refine it. And the big pieces here really comments pagination has had some unwanted block margin. Little things like this, though, feel like they're small, but they're really significant for something that you go to time and time again, having that unwanted margin and those little refinements. And to me, it shows maturity and that little refinement coming through. And then this navigation block, I actually was part of this piece with the sub indicator. This shows sometimes a small thing can feel, so it's where the flip sub menu. So the sub menu indicates whether something has a sub menu or not. And it
Mhm.
wasn't showing it. It wasn't visually indicating. And it seems like something would be a very easy commit. It is not, because it has a lot more implications in testing. So it shows in collaboration how we should have more extensive testing helps as well.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. And for the bottom margin, if they are unwanted, kind of and removed, I can see quite a few theme developers who fix that on their theme with
Yeah.
custom CSS.
Yeah.
Now they need to kind of also remove the custom CMS
Yeah.
to fix that. So
Which is good, but it
yeah.
also shows that if you are making these, so one of the things I always suggest is have a kind of hacks file, or at least a section, so you know that you've hacked it. So you know you've worked around the system, not just kind of hide it within your theme. And it's really important to notice these releases and check back if you possibly can. And kind of the last one here in the block library is remove screencast.com embed block variation. So again, if something isn't getting used as much, being able to take that away.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And but they also need to take away the O embed part in
Yes.
core, not only
Yeah.
in Gutenberg
Yeah.
there. Yeah. So and then there were some updates on the interactivity API. That's certainly interesting for developers who have actually explored it already. There's now support for new router regions where you can click on and jump to. And it supports also new styles and script models on the client-side navigation. And it also starts using TypeScript for some of the helpers and some of the components or things. I call them modules. So you can better test it against and make sure that your code is compliant there. So the next thing is really exciting for me because I hear a lot of plugin developers who are kind of, yeah, talking about extensibility. And now we have one block is actually really easy to extend and allow additional block variations. That's the social icons block. Now you can add any other service that is not maintained by core easily in a block variation. And the PR is 70261 if you wanna jump on it. It has some nice instructions on how to do this. I also know that Justin Padlock is working on a tutorial for the blog developer, for the developer blog, not blog, blog. I'm really excited about it because or it came to a good timing for myself. I'm working on a blog theme for the Gutenberg Times, and we have the podcast there, and the podcast needs additional things in there, like the podcast name and the description is one thing, but you also need additional social icons where you can subscribe to the blog and to the podcast. So I identified 7 of them, and of course only one of them is in core, and I need to grade the other 6 of them. I did my first trial on it, and it was fairly easy to do. It gets a little bit complicated when you have your own styling to it, but if you're just gonna push it into the Gutenberg interface, yeah, and let the user style it, or change color pretty much, yeah, then it's fairly easy to implement.
So I guess we move on to bug fixes now. And in bug fixes, this is one of my favorite sections really, because it means we're just kind of cleaning up a little bit. So calendar block, colors do not change between global styles and theme JSON. Things like that we spoke about, like the theme fixing things like that are really, really important quality of life changes. And then social links allow icon size to be reset and honor theme JSON styles. That's 70380. That is really, really important as well from again, a quality of life. And you were talking about hacks. There probably has been a hack that you had to put in to kind of work around that as well.
Yeah, for both of them, for the calendar block as well as for the
Yeah.
social links. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine there's like a not important for the second one.
Yeah. Yeah, I also I came to accustomed to study the bug fixes because sometimes you run into bugs and you, is it still there and or is it not? And all of them,
Yeah.
oh, it's not there
Yeah.
anymore, and it's kind of
Yeah.
really
And then
interesting.
you can just clean up
Yeah,
your bug file, right?
yeah, and you
Yeah.
can clean up your brain
Yeah.
with the workarounds. Yeah, not only the
Mm.
theme files but also the memory
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, yeah, and that is pretty much what I found interesting in the Gutenberg 20.1. There's a whole changelog, yeah, with tooling and documentation updates, and the release post actually has all the changelog in there, so you can read up about that. And we're coming to Gutenberg 21.2. And here we see already some changes to the data views. It introduces the per page sizes to control the available size of the items per page. So that is something that comes from the admin, where you
Yeah.
can say, it's kind of getting feature power on the WP admin, where you can say, okay, I want 50 things on my page. Please do this also on the new data view. So that's cool.
Yeah, I love this. This also, and the kind of next release shows that data views is getting used by people because it shows that we need to improve it. I am someone that has been using data views in situations and they are great, but they are quite limiting. And it means the more potential you have, the more easily it is to use for and implement. And it also means more feedback. So that's what's happening in how and the improvements are happening. So yeah, the more things like this, whenever you see data views or API, that's what gets me very happy. I like the other fixes, but
Yeah.
this sets us, it's moving us forward. And I think sometimes a lot of this can feel hidden because it's more like the infrastructure in the sense, but data views, data forms, and API work, it really just moves us forward.
Yeah. So can you share in what kind of situations you use the data views
I've been using
in
a
your
lot of
project?
experimental. So one of the big things I've been doing is anytime I'm creating a plugin, that's pretty much what I use for my interface at the moment. I'm trying to not have to the normal the interface we use. I'm trying to use the data views from now on because it's the way we're going. So it feels a lot more natural to do. It's easy to do it on the front and you can do it on the back. You can choose how much you have. A little bit depending on what you want to do, you may have to do wrappers, all those kind of different
Hmm.
things. So, but again, through a lot of it's through experimentation, but through doing experimentation, you find the limitations. So there was a ticket that there's been a few people having a conversation, the limitation on settings, for example, tangent to data views. You can't have a 2 column necessarily under a particular situation, but if you want to do that, needs to be bug fixes. So it's by using and by finding out we need to use them in particular situations. So again, this having per pages, and the one after this, the improving inline. All of these kind of things allow you to be able to start to implement in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can also see that there's two effects in there with starting now to use the data views. One is you get a lot of experiments and practice in it. So
Yeah.
experience is kind of, you try to adopt it, see how you fail or the system fails, and then you can improve upon it.
Yeah.
But the muscle memory that you build,
Yeah.
that you kind of get into the new API
Yeah.
really pushes you forward
Yeah.
when things then land in
Yeah.
core.
And I was lucky enough, I think it was back in November, goodness me, there at Core Dev Days, there was an awesome workshop in it. And that, it feels a long time ago now, but it felt kind of like it wasn't early with data views, but it kind of felt that it was earlier. But that version feels very far away from the version that we're getting to play with now. And the version now, it's a lot less grumpy when you implement it. So I would encourage everyone, just if you're gonna make something and you just want to experiment with it, just start playing with it and see about implementing it. There's some great stuff on the developer blog about using it, which is just easy to follow. I think it's been recently updated, unless you would know that. I think it's been updated, or
Yeah.
recently enough updated.
Yeah, I think Juan Ma
Yeah.
did a blog post about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. The next one is, do you want to take the next one too?
Yes, so that's a block library one. So the block library, add open in tab toggle. Whew, that's like one of those like tongue twisters. Open in new tab toggle to navigation block sidebar. Okay, so this one, what I like about this is it shows a consistency of interface, and actually it shows it even more so if you and I. The nerd that I am, I like reading back into tickets, and actually it shows that. So when it got implemented, one of the last comments is we need to roll this out into other places to make sure it's consistent. So it's adding a consistency, but then it needs to be rolled out to make sure it's consistent in other places. So the interface that we have is great, but if it's not consistent, so yeah, that's what it does. It puts it in the relevant place for where you need the information at the right time, and then it's rolling it out. So it's a small quality of life thing, but that's the type of thing we need to do with the editor interface at the moment.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you cannot just say, oh, I'm in a different context. Why is it link not
Yeah.
working like that? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fairly
Yeah.
easy. Yeah.
And thinking, we now know where people are looking at the time. Like you can make a best guess, you can be like, me, kind of, but there is a language that is becoming and the language that is refining. And then that means we can take some things away and we can really refine where things go.
Yeah. Yeah. That was. So the next thing is what the format library that improves the inline image replacement workflow. I have not quite figured out what that does, but I'm just recently discovered the inline image again. I kind of was at the early on image block fan and not doing anything inline with images, but I like when you do icons in there
Mm.
or
Mm.
you cannot, because the whole paragraph works differently when you have an image in there and then you have to fiddle
It
with
does.
it.
Yeah.
And so they improve the workflow. I'm not sure if that's getting there. It's getting there, yeah. So
Mm.
if you are using inline images, yeah, check it out and see if it really helps you with getting around that.
So in the block editor, so this ticket says allow replacing the post-locked modal component 70586. But if you kind of dig into this, the too long don't read is prep for collaborative editing work. So it's basically providing a filter for that, which is such an enticing kind of part of it. So in order to be able to build again, like what we were talking about, we want all these things in 6.9 and 7, but we need some infrastructure, we need that extensibility, and we need the foundations to be able to do that. You can't just like slap a layer on it and ta-da, it just works. So we need all this infrastructure.
Yeah, and it's also a shift in kind of approach of things. We have 20 years was only one person editing a
Yeah.
post, and
Yeah.
and now we need to get ready
Yeah.
that multiple people editing a post. So
Yeah.
all the log things need to be
Yeah.
a little
It's
bit
moving from a
more.
book to an iPad.
Is it really a book to an iPad? The iPad is still one person using it.
Well, yeah, but it's multiple layered.
Yeah. it definitely gets more complex,
Yeah.
when multiple people
Yeah.
to do things instead of one. Yeah, that's
Or a tin
certainly.
can with a bit of string to a Zoom call. There you go. That's a random analogy.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. It's like it's like from the caveman to the Middle Ages. Yeah. Yeah, we have also some changes in the components library, and there's now the date calendar and date range calendar components. They seem to have been missing, and now they're here. So you can use them
Hmm.
for your interfaces when you do events, something like that, or scheduling things, so you have more components to work with, and you don't have to build them yourself.
But that's also part of the design system, which we need, right? So part of it is, again, the first version is best bet. It's like we think we know, but when in phase one, when we were building an editor, no, we needed all these components and all these pieces because we were building an editor. We were making paragraphs and headings. That's all we were doing. And it's not that anymore. It's a kit that you can build anything you possibly can think of. So
Right.
therefore, it needs all the pieces
Mhm.
of an interface kit to be able to extend. So the components, and it's now a question of that, does it need everything? No, because that's a lot to maintain. But it's certainly, if something is used frequently and is going to be like really required by the interface frequently, then it needs to have its having our own components, or at least having like native, is really, really important.
Yeah, especially now when they get to the whole new admin is built on components, right? That
Yeah.
are graded now.
And it also means that product makers can use those components a lot easier, which
Hmm.
is lovely.
Yeah, you don't
So
have to make
exciting.
decisions about interfaces anymore. Yeah,
Yes, I was like, I need a calendar. I need it to work. I need it natively. Boop, grab the
yeah,
calendar.
yeah. But yeah, what are the attributes? Suck, suck, suck. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean, the thing often people are like is, oh, it's always going to be no. You can style it into your heart's content. It can be pink with sparkles if you really want. Maybe don't do that, but
Rainbow.
But that's the thing of a component.
Yes.
You are getting the bones and the
Hmm.
structure and the muscle. You aren't necessarily getting the makeup.
But it's
A
a
weird
and it's a
analogy day.
it's an yeah, but it's good. Yeah. Yeah, for the interactivity API, maybe we kind of need to think about some analogies there, but the two additional PRs that came into Gutenberg 20.1 were prioritize the custom click event handlers for full page navigation. That's now enabled, and then also preserve media attributes on the
Mhm.
initial style sheet after client-side navigation. So it's a client-side navigation, it's a full page
Mhm.
navigation that has been more stable on the with the interactivity APIs router feature that was started last plugin release, and now it's coming. It came in an additional feature there.
And moving on from that, and I'm just going to kind of have a note about API. We likely are going to see more APIs because we should, because that then shows that you can extend. There's been talk about should menus have something like that. With the templates API, we've seen with Site Editor sort post types alphabetically within the add template modal. That's 70562. Again, all of these things before maybe we would have had something that wasn't an API, but an API is a far better way of doing this. It's a far more modern approach of doing this, and it's the proper way to do extensibility.
Yeah, and you have to know how you build it first before you can extend it. Yeah, right. So it
Yeah,
takes a
you have
while.
to know what you're going to build. And the thing
Yeah.
is, you can't, particularly to undertake an API, because there's a maintenance burden. And I think this is always something, particularly like doing work in extensibility. Yes, you could support everything, but unless you have a time machine, that's a lot. So really being considerate, particularly once you have an API, of just how useful is that? How much of a burden is that going to be to support is really, really important.
Mhm. Yeah. Absolutely. And we are in the bug fixes that
Favorite
came with
section
six.
again.
I like the first one that I want to point out that it's the image box. It preserves now the line breaks when the caption comes from the media library. So there
That's
was
a
a
quality of
disconnect in
life
the.
thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have to do it twice. Why is it
Yeah.
losing my line breaks, and now I have to do it again? Yeah.
Yeah.
So now it can do it automatically. It's
Yeah.
smart enough now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the same is fixed now with the RSS block. Some of the, well, WordPress allows you to put markup into the title, but
Mm.
when the RSS block pulls in the title, it displayed the raw coding instead of the, yeah, now it kind of just strips it out and shows a very consistent title display in your RSS blog from other sites.
So this is in bug fixes, but it's quite important. It's enables support for showing individual block variations in stylebook.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's pretty much my most favorite feature. An enhancement. I think it's enhancement, but it's on the bug fixes because you were trying to look to click on the style
Yeah.
variations and it wouldn't come. Yeah, so there was
Yeah.
expectations. I mean,
So it
every
actually
time.
enables it in the
Yeah.
right section is where basically.
Yeah, so what happened was when you wanted to style the button block in your site in
Mm,
the styles, you were only
yeah.
able to style the default one. But when you clicked on the outline, you got back to the default one. You couldn't style the outline. You had to use a theme JSON or
Yeah.
any or some other JSON file for it, yeah, or a plugin for that. And
Yeah.
I don't know how hard the fix was, but it's there. I think that's it. So we're coming for Gutenberg 20.3. Do you want to start out
Ooh,
again? Because it's your favorite
yes.
pieces.
So the first section is data views under enhancement. So again, this really shows the data views are getting used, and that's the too long don't read. I guess this episode is these features are getting used by people, and these features are getting therefore improvements and iterations and people working on them. So in this is there's two particular things to call out, or there's several things at least. There's add the data field type 70657 and then add group by field support to grid layout. So this is about grouping items by fields and allows you to organize amounts of data and extend layouts such as table layout in the future. So it's setting that groundwork and allowing grouping. And it also supports the data field type. So it's again setting up for something that you can do now and allowing you. And also it's links in with the new calendar component. So it's that kind of link in with the new components as well.
Yes. So it had a date time field type, and now there's
Yeah.
also a date field type that's just a date. Yeah. It's kind of
Yeah,
you
and
need
it
it
says
for events
in
calendar. Yeah.
in the ticket, yeah, it says filtering and editing features will be implemented in the future.
Yes. Yeah, and then for the block library, the cover block now supports a poster image. So users with large video file or slow internet connection see still an image in there before the video loads.
Mm,
That's kind of an
mm,
enhancement for slower connections, or if you do it locally and you can't get the video from
yeah.
another place. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And then the post content block has now an add name selector, a tag name
Mm,
selector. That's kind of the part where you identify semantic ways for the post content. Is it a main
yeah.
content? Is it a section content? Is it an article kind of semantic thing? Missing words here. Tags.
Mm, hmm.
HTML tags, HTML semantic HTML tags. That's I think the technical term for that is.
Yeah, there was one we haven't called out, but I'd like to mention about layout, adding max limit to row span and column in grid, which is a quality life, which I think is really important as well.
Excellent. Yeah. Oh yeah, here I see it. Yes. It's absolutely. Yeah, and that also shows that there is work to be done on the grid blog,
Yes.
and that might be it might not come to 6.9, but it's definitely coming. It's better.
Hmm.
It's back on people's task list. Yeah, under the bug fixing, there was nothing really stand out for me.
No, it just looks like a lot of quality of life and
Yeah,
just
for some blogs.
good bug
Yeah,
fixing to me, which is there's been a lot of activity this release, which is really good. And there's a big section of code quality and documentation, which always makes me happy.
absolutely. So that was it. There was one. Oh, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, there's one that says remove public APIs for getting images. That has to do with the list view, but there are images in the list view to identify some of the blocks when you have a cover block that you see the image of that. There was an implementation for that, but that is still experimental, and there was a shift in how experiments are actually implemented in Gutenberg. So people are not tempted to use experimental public APIs anymore. Yeah, so if you find that confusing, it definitely is, but it's also for your own good, so to speak, or for the good of the
It's confusion for
maintainers.
safety.
Yeah, absolutely, for future safety. But of course, there's an acknowledgement that there are plenty of experimental things still in Gutenberg that all have been used in production for many years. Yeah, that was it. That was the Gutenberg releases. Yeah, now we have what's in active development or discussed. We can certainly not talk about everything, but we wanted to talk about the update experiment settings screens to use the data forms. So there's a PR by Fabian who said, okay, so Gutenberg has an experiment screen where you can check on or off some of the experiments, like for the collaborative editing or for the grid layout, for some forms. And he said, well, if we do want other people to use the data views, we probably should rewrite that experiment settings page in Gutenberg. So I really love that initiative.
Yeah,
And how
experiment should be experimental.
Say that again.
The experiment should be experimental.
Absolutely, absolutely. And well, a few plugin releases before, Anne went through and actually gave some section headers in there, so they were not just added to the list and not kind of clustered together. So.
And that's where there was a like, under certain circumstances, the two column can be worked out. So
Absolutely.
that's how we find out the limitations, right? Like by using this. All these features, again, we have to use them. This is what we've learned time and time again. They're great, they're amazing, but we need to use them. We need to implement them. Even we can't put them in a beta and say, oh, just do some usability testing. No, we need to build with them. We need to get our hands dirty and need to see, oh my goodness, you can't do this. Oh, this doesn't work with this type of data. That's what we need to happen. So using it in the plugin makes a lot of sense in a way that doesn't cause a negative experience, and that page isn't going to hopefully cause a negative experience.
Well, if you want to learn how to do this, that's a kind of an interesting page to look at the code to learn from it and kind of say maybe you can implement it in your own one-page settings page.
Honestly, it looks so much better.
Yes.
Like when you look at it, you look at and no shade, because at the time the settings pages were amazing in WordPress, but times have changed. And looking at the two column or the new iterations, even the single version of it is night and day. It really is.
Yeah, when you see the before and after, you see really see the difference. You say, okay, I want to live there. I don't want to live there anymore.
Yes, I want to be there in that world. World has white space.
Yeah, the road has white spaces. A couple of days ago, I showed my husband, who's also a programmer, but he is a programmer from the early database days. Yeah, like a Clipper and DBase and all that. So, and then he sees some of and he looked at the screen and said, "Well, what's all the white space there?"
Well, back then though, because it cost. That was the thing. Like back then, it cost bandwidth. Like every line was a cost. I remember when I learned, you couldn't have large space taken up because it cost. Now it doesn't. Now I just want all the space because it doesn't. Well, it does cost, but it doesn't cost as much now. It almost costs us more to not have it because it costs us like a negative user experience, which is weird, wibbly, upside downy worldy to live in, but that's what we have. Of course, we don't go too far to the extreme where you can't actually implement it or use it because too much white space is weird. But just being able to breathe in an interface.
But it's interesting that these visual DNA is still in some people's minds, right? That's what I kind of took away from it. It's like, go away, go
Mm-hmm.
back to your 90s.
Go back to your terminal.
Yeah.
Go back to your courier terminal.
No, that he says, why are you doing command line? Isn't that so 80s? Didn't we go away with the command line?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So, yeah, it's interesting discussions in Pauli-Haack's home. So we have a second thing that we wanted to talk about, and that's the PR by Luigi Teschio, and he is working on exploring template versioning to preserve active plugin and theme templates instead of letting it overwritten by database. And I don't know how that's going to work. Have you looked at that?
I haven't really looked at it yet, but I'm really curious to follow it. And I think just exploring different ways of doing things is really interesting as well.
Yeah, so I leave that link in the
But I
show
think there's a
notes.
call for feedback and thoughts on it,
Absolutely.
which is a really interesting perspective. I think real world use cases is something I was trying to think about, and that's the kind of feedback I would like to give. And that's what I'll be going back to it with, trying to add that type of thinking.
Excellent, excellent. So, well, I guess we're at the end of the show. This is it. And as always, dear listeners, thank you so much for being here. And if you want, you can leave us a review on any of your favorite podcast apps. Or if you're on Spotify, the review is, you can also leave comments so we can have a little conversation there as well if you want to. But the show notes will be published on gutenbergtimes.com/podcast. This is episode 119. If you have questions or suggestions or news you want to include us, send them to changelog@gutenbergtimes.com. That's changelog@gutenbergtimes.com. So, Tammie, is there anything that you want our listeners to take away from it that we haven't talked about?
No, I think the big one is if you can start experimenting and exploring things like data views and data forms in your product, because now is the time to do that. And then start giving feedback because there's lots to come this year that you'll be able to, and early next year. So being able to, as you mentioned, start that muscle memory and start learning with it is really, really important.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a great way to end this podcast episode. And thank you all for listening. Thank you, Tammie, for being here. And goodbye. And I'll see you at WordCamp. Yes.
And thank you for having me.
All right. Take care.